everybody, and welcome back to the second episode of the Same 60 podcast. I am once again joined by Michael and Liam. But today we have a very special guest. It is Andrew, and he is down there.
Hello. It's lovely to be on this lovely little thing.
I know, a side project. Well,
exactly.
An inside joke that turned into a side project. And now
exactly.
Close the draw. Michael's
all the good podcasts can start off like that.
Trying to find money. Okay, well, just to let you guys know, the theme of this episode is going to be on players and not necessarily the game. We thought it could be a very fun topic to explore because it's not something that gets spoken about too much, other than when, like, you know, somebody cheats or does egregious things to the side of their head or has things. Anyway, we will apologise for the previous episode in which Liam's audio was, by my own idiocy, too low. You could barely hear him for the first half, and then you could just about hear him for the second half. So listen to the second half; it's actually banging. But we did do a test audio thingy today, so his audio should be fine, and so should Andrew's actually. Bonus!
Yay!
Yeah, we hear all of us. Yeah, we'll talk for the first time on this podcast. Hi, I'm Liam, and here's my volume check.
He now has free speech. He can hear.
Yay!
He's been given volume.
It was costing me, I had to subscribe to the volume package on Discord, and unfortunately I hadn't done that, so luckily Reese has fixed it now, so we're all good.
We are all good. Well, now that we've established that we're all good, let's talk about player etiquette.
Yeah.
And how good that is. Okay.
Love players.
And Michael's complete lack of, apparently.
Well, we like to maintain a level of...
Liam, you tilted more than I did, that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, tilting is definitely bad.
Very good.
Hey, we can talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, that's a later thing.
Like, one thing that I found really weird when I first came to Pokemon, because I mainly played Commander, like, prior, which is super casual, Magic the Gathering format, and went to Pokemon, and, like, the player etiquette is different. Like, you very rarely offer the cut in Commander. Unless you're playing it at, like, CEDH, which is, like, the competitive Commander side. It's very weird to have things like the cut, where it's after every shuffle you offer the cut. And it takes some getting used to. It's definitely weird. And that's why we're talking about player etiquette.
You could argue, when it comes to the cut, at least, that you went from a casual to quite a competitive section of the game itself, and obviously when you get to the competitive side, it is always a constant cut search kind of mechanic.
Yeah, we
and you do get that kind of problem. No, I wouldn't call it a problem, but you get that that's a big etiquette thing, and some people take it more seriously than others. And it's always that kind of constant thing of let's go and cut the deck now. Oh, I searched again. Let's go and cut the deck. Offering the cut's obviously a big etiquette thing. How have you found offering the cut, Michael and Liam, whenever it comes to the joining the game, or whenever you got into the game?
Well, I think in my case it was quite normal. I think I had the opposite issue that you had, Bruce, where I've always been playing card games in some fashion or form, and I was very used to cutting the deck. So when I started playing Commander a few years ago, more than that actually, it was weird when no cut was offered. I had to get very used to just cutting my own deck, which people found weird. Did anyway. But now obviously I do it. Now I'm back to, cutting decks like normal.
So now we've got Liam's take. How about Michael's?
Of course.
Oh, hi, I'm not Liam. So I'm from a non-card playing background. I didn't play anything before Pokemon, which we talked about in the last podcast. So doing the cuts and stuff like that is completely new to me. Like playing online, obviously you don't do cuts; it's just all automatically shuffled. Yeah. All your best cards go to the bottom, which is just how the game works, apparently. So yeah, it was weird. The first time I ever saw it, I think, may have been as well. Look, I say not as early as I've been watching, obviously, streams and things like that, so I know from that cuts and things happen. And I tried to introduce that at one of our locals, obviously not the ones where we all predominantly play, but like the other one. Are we allowed to mention?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Okay, so Geek Retreat, it's.
We're not the BBC.
I know.
You can mention company names.
Anybody or anything. That's all. I'm trying to be sensitive. Listen, streaming for like 8 years.
An entire franchise of card shops.
Okay, specifically blah blah, a postcode, and anyway. So now you're all done. Yeah, good, happy. Geek Retreat is very, very casual audience, and it's quite fun because before these guys started coming up, most specifically Reese and Michael, nobody really did anything that was like what I would deem as like official for the rules. We had people just kind of like, it was the Wild West. Like shuffles were literally, I don't know, just say you had this, but quite often this, and that was a shuffle, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. For the audio listeners, I moved 2 cards. It didn't make any sense. So when I started like taking decks and cutting them after seeing them in regional streams and stuff like that, people were like, oh, what are you doing? It's like, oh, it's the cut, it's what you do. I think Oliver was maybe one of the first people I saw doing anything like that. And I was like, yeah, okay, I should probably follow suit. And after regionals at Liverpool, I was like way more on it constantly. I was like always making sure to offer the cuts and stuff like that. Because for me, people playing there, they might never go to a regional or whatever. They might not care about that level of competition. For me personally, I kind of want to maintain that level of competition. So when I go to a regional, I'm not, coming off 6 months of not doing any cuts and shuffles and going, oh yeah, that's a thing I should be remembering to do and stuff like that. And especially after like some of the things we've seen at like recent regional streams and things, the cutting, shuffling, etc. is like way more like I've got to make sure I'm doing this. And it really does separate the people from the people that know and are used to that stuff to the people who aren't, because you can quite often say, listen, I'm going to use, I'll go back in, don't worry about the cut. Whereas some people will shuffle and then go, and Ultra Ball for blah, blah. And it's like, oh, okay, I've just cut that and now you're going to go back through it again. Yeah, it does.
I'm super bad for that.
Depending, it can be used as a time-wasting tactic. I've seen that used before.
Yeah, and I don't think it's the case for a lot of people. I think it is just people not that experienced, in the same way that, like, if you're going to use level ball, for example, you go 2 level balls, just do them at the same time. It's that kind of logic, whereas some people will do one at a time, and I know certainly that's the rules, but we do kind of like speed things along as much as we can in certain situations. And yeah, having sorry if I'm talking about the same thing forever. The cut is like a very much I wasn't sure about it at first, but now it makes sense, and I just do it all the time. Even if nobody offers it, if I know they're done, if I know they've finished their turn, I almost feel like if you don't offer the cut, you're kind of like trying to make sure I don't disrupt something. There was a while back, to be fair, I was a kid, but he used the phrase, oh, I can't find that card, that's not where I put it. And I was like, I'm gonna have to shuffle this deck for you because clearly you are kind of stacking the deck a little bit here. So yeah, it was an interesting concept to come across, which I now like exercise in all games. So
catching the cheaters is getting easier, isn't it? Whenever they just explain their cheating.
Yeah, they do it on stream, they tell us they're doing it. It's great.
I'll give it my thing. I always looked at it. I came from Magic in the sense of not Magic the Gathering, genuine Magic.
Mm-hmm.
Or genuine card magic.
Harry Potter and like
and basically yes. Fictional and real. But and from that point of view, we learn shuffles and so on, and knowing what somebody can do with a deck makes you a lot more conscious of obviously making sure that you're the last one to touch it, because it means you can make sure it's randomized enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I came. So it came quite naturally, because I'm a cynical sod and don't trust people when it comes to it. So, but you get into the habit. And what is interesting about Liam talk about, which is player bases and how player bases change depending on what local you go to. The local that we are from in lovely Stoke-on-Trent, not me because I'm not from here, but we know that part.
If you were.
It would be very strange. It will be very strange. I will not say where I'm from. You can take a guess. But yes, I'm from Bangor. But when it comes to player etiquette, so different shop will have different player bases depending how big it is and not big it is, and that will then foster, of course, the casual idea of not doing things properly or not doing things that oh, don't worry about that, whatever, and then. You can sometimes get. I'm not sure if you find this, Liam, when it comes to that group. Did you get a lot of pushback because it seemed like you're being too competitive?
I don't think so. To be fair, nobody's ever really gone, oh, I don't want you to do that. There's definitely been agreements where we're like, oh, it's someone I trust or play against regularly. We won't worry about doing the cuts so much. But for me personally, I've always gone. I've said one of the most annoying ones. I won't name names, but they do tend to go, and that's my turn. Carry on doing what they were doing. If they're like, for argument's sake, say it's an Arceus, they're attaching energy still. They say, "Oh yeah, you can do your turn," and I will start my turn, and then as soon as they're finished shuffling, I will then cut, and they kind of look at you like they're expecting you to forget to do that. And it was like, yeah, I'm not going to. But realistically, nobody ever went, "Oh, don't do that," or "Don't touch my deck," or anything like that. To be fair, most people are kind of like, "Oh, right, okay, yeah, you're just one of those people that are hyper competitive but still bad at the game."
I've definitely encountered some people at the Geek Retreat who haven't been the biggest fan of certain player etiquette rules. Like, I know it's more of a rule than player etiquette, but like turn zero, like it was not implemented in that store for a very long time. And I think, me, Matthew, and Michael were kind of the people that were like, hey, this is how it works when a game goes to time. And there's definitely been backlash for that. So
yeah, we started forcing that a lot more, and going on the same thing of being self-policing. Yeah, I went around. This is as recent as last Tuesday. I went around and went, okay, these 2 games are still in overtime. Is it round 3 or 4? And I said to them, okay, you're in round 0. You're in overtime. Yours is turn 0. Blah blah. And they're all like, what? I was like, this is just how the game is played. And yeah, there is definitely one person at Geek Retreat that's kind of like, oh god, yeah, I guess that's the rules. Blah blah blah. It's like, well, no, that is the rules. Like, either say you don't do an overtime rule, or if we're self-policing it and making it happen, just accept that it's happening. They're trying to hurry things along, but they're not doing time limits and stuff properly. Anyways, like, yeah, it's talking to a rant post. I'm sorry.
You can. To be fair, this is not really an etiquette thing, but it tangents off, which is how Pokemon doesn't end the game how you would assume it does. So you've got the problem of, I'm going to kill you over in time. That must be whoever has the most prizes loses, or who's taken the most prizes wins.
Yeah, people have like before.
Yeah, and it's like, that's kind of what you assume it is, and then obviously it's not that for obvious loads of different reasons. But yeah, you've got a mechanic which fights against nature, against what people believe it is. But it's a funny old thing, and yes, time rules are always a strange one from a competitive standpoint, because you can never. It's a strange one to try and get involved with all these kinds of issues that we have to deal with constantly.
I know that Top Cut rules have it to where after turn 0, it's whoever's taken the most prizes, but it's like always. I understand why it's not like that normally, because it like completely disenfranchises a lot of different playstyles, and by a lot I mean like one, which is control. Like, you would just never see, it would not be a viable archetype. And we've gone from player etiquette to rules. That's just,
yeah, I was gonna say
the tangents are real. I mean, I feel like we can never just stay on.
I mean, that's always the fun of it, though,
but,
right?
I mean, that is the best thing. I mean, plan for an hour, you get 2. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, you sit down talk about one topic that tangents to a different one. Like, I do think time rules cannot. I mean, time rules does link to etiquette in some way, because not everyone obviously agrees on them, and not everyone is going to be very accepting of them. Like, you could be in a pretty, let's say, winnable game state, and then turn 0 hits, and you go, well, damn it, I'm forced to tie up this guy, even though I'm winning. And it's quite interesting, as Andy mentioned, about different time rules being a bit strange. Obviously, because just to go a little bit more off topic, obviously the different card games have different time rules. So Yu-Gi-Oh's one right now is, for anyone who's fully aware of it, awful. So yeah. I think it worked like the way Pokemon used to work. I don't know, honestly, about old Pokemon time rules, but the way it works in Yu-Gi-Oh right now is, as soon as time is called, that is it. Whoever's winning is winning. Done. Over with. You didn't even get, like, I think they used to have the same as Pokemon, as they used to have a turn 0, and then they got rid of it. And there's also problems there as well. So, I mean, and obviously not everyone's the most happy about it. I mean, people are not going to always enjoy losing because of time rules, no matter which Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh, whichever way it's done. So it's this interesting idea of, like,
you can never please everyone.
No, it's like, you get to a point with player etiquette and time rules where it's like, you just kind of have to deal with it and just play with it. And unfortunately, it is what it is the best way to say it. But,
I've always seen it as a bit of a pointless argument, because it depends on what the rule. There's no point learning how to do the game wrong.
No, I agree.
So there's a good example of this is there's a shop owner from where I'm from originally who used to teach people in the Pokemon game that if you want to flip a coin, you have to use dice, as the game as we do. but he used to teach them the opposite way, which was tails was evens and heads was odds. There's nothing in the rules that says you can't do that, but it becomes a point of, well, everyone you know outside of this little bubble is going to do it, and it's going to disaffect you the more you do it with other people, and you're making your own experience worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's the point? And it gets a little bit into, well, what's the point of this kind of thing? But I think there's nothing in the rules to say you can't. It's just who does it.
That's another one from Geek Street as well. It's like we've had roles before, and I do this every time, and I think you guys will attest to this. When we go, heads or tails, the starting coin flip, it's like, I'll go heads. I always say, or if tails, the other way around, but I go, if it's a head score, I go heads is evens and roll it. And there's been a couple of people that have gone, yeah, no. I'm like, yeah, but not everybody does, and it's a force of habit now, just to make sure that that's being reinforced to everybody.
It's also
as proven. Apparently not. Sorry, respawn.
It's also weird because we've strangely now come back to player etiquette because, like, rolling a dice rather than flipping a coin is very often perceived as the right way to do it. There's nothing in the rules that says you have to use a coin or you have to use a dice, but it's just like more widely accepted that a dice is much fairer than a coin 9 times out of 10. Unless you spend stupid money on a completely fair coin, which is still not. Whereas, in the generalization, a dice is often fairer than a coin, and especially like the hollow ones.
Technically, it does say flip a coin if heads. we've gone, coin dice. Dice is fine.
Yeah, it's also a thing. If you had a coin flipping robot that could do it consistently at the same rate,
yeah,
you'd be all right. But it doesn't happen. No, in Japan, you have to use coins. If you ever see the Japanese streams, they always flip the coins. And in Japanese streams, it looks really jarring.
Yeah, it's strange
because we're so used to using dice as a coin.
I mean,
which
Japan stream looks weird in general, but obviously it's not very relevant.
Yeah,
but
etiquette.
Leads
etiquette
on to something. That does lead on to more of the play etiquette topic what I got today. Of I know Liam mentioned earlier about gentleman agreements. Obviously, I like when you IO don't bother giving your opponent that card. You trust each other, yada yada yada. But on a different note, out of interest of everybody here, are there any specific gentleman agreements that you tend to do either by naturally? So just because obviously we all know each other, we play each other, we're used to being doing gentleman agreements with each other at this point. But are there any like gentleman agreements you like to do in general, maybe like outside of the friendship group or the our Pokemon group?
I think. Oh, go on, Reese.
Carry on. No, you.
Oh no, you did. I'm fine. Yeah, I mean, I started in the Marnie format, so the whole and this extends to Heavy Ball and now Iono. The whole like checking shuffling your hand and then chucking at the bottom of the deck. People don't ever. I say don't ever, but a lot of people don't even think about offering the cut. And the amount of times I've offered the cut and been looked at like I'm an absolute like mad person is ridiculous. So I've kind of just accepted at this stage that nobody wants to cut when it comes to Iono, and I can't wait till I take this lesson to a regional and I get one rule stickler that goes, "Oh, you didn't offer me the cut, judge," and I'm like, "Oh, for God's sake!" Like it's gonna be one of those things that eventually catches me out, and it's gonna be really annoying. But it does seem to be like not even a gentleman's agreement, just a general agreement that nobody bothers like cutting after what was Marnie, now Iono, or a Heavy Ball. Like most people don't seem to care about that either. So it's an odd one. It's not like a specific "this is you and me" thing, but it does seem to be like a generally accepted thing in the community at the moment.
I mean, because it's pointless for the most part. Like, the only way you're getting access to those cards is... Well, it's not completely pointless, but for the most part it is. Because the only way you're getting access to those cards is if you draw your entire library without using a single deck shuffle. Which, don't get me wrong, Gordy can do.
I was about to make that joke.
Like, Gordy can definitely do that. But it's like...
The average Kyogre deck.
Is it really worth it? And like, yeah, I can see like if you see that they just don't shuffle their hand at all, then sure, in the short space it takes you to shuffle 8 cards, there's probably not very there's probably some wizard that can do it where you can track every single card there, and then you've got to be like planning 10 turns ahead and everything go right in those 10 turns for the order of those cards to matter.
Or Expeditions Uniform.
Nobody runs a call. It's a bad card. It's a bad
Kieran?
card.
No.
Excuse me.
It's a bad
There's
card, we should
also-
play it.
There's also the thing of as soon as anybody plays any search card, then that knowledge becomes pointless.
Yeah.
Because then the bottom changes. So it's all so yeah. I'll give him my thought. I've never been offered a cut of Marnie.
Really?
No one's ever offered me a cut of Marnie. I guess it is one of those things you just don't really do.
No.
The heavy ball one has become more of a thing since certain people may have been done for
Since an event.
since a recent event. That has become a lot more where people will offer the cut of the heavy ball stuff. It's always weird just going, yeah, these three. It just doesn't really
Yeah.
matter.
I still
But
do it.
it's more of a case of as long as a shuffle has occurred, doesn't really matter as long as you can see a shuffle's occurred at least. It's sort of a big issue with it all. So you've got that constant issue of basically when to cut. It all comes down to cutting, really. A lot of etiquette just seems to come down to how can an opponent manipulate me, and how can I control them not doing that. That's what a lot of etiquette does come down to. A lot of card games are like that. It is a lot about how not to become not to use carnival language, but a mark.
Mhm.
How do I not get hustled? So
Yeah.
it does a lot of cutting this, cutting that, and then you do get the card shark ones here, or the rule shark ones who will tell you you should have offered me this, that, and the other. I believe isn't there a rule in the judges about malicious use of the rules? I think there's something like that where
there is.
you can get done for those you don't know. You can get basically if you're trying to use the rules against itself or how they weren't really meant to be used, you can get called out in that. Which I think is a brilliant mechanic because then you're up to. Then it comes down to what the judge believes is a malicious use.
Yeah.
It all comes down to interpretation at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But
Sorry,
yeah, it's
go
a whole other topic. We don't want to get too much into judges and how kind or brutal they feel like being during the day. And on a side note, I'm not gonna lie to you, Andy. If I sat down opposite you and you, Marnie, I'd be too scared to offer you the cut. I'm like, when you Iona me, I'm just sat there being like, oh god.
why? I'm a very nice
No,
player
we're
to
both
play
the
against.
same. I get that.
But I
just.
just get Iona to stare blankly at you, going, "How can I hurt you?" That's all I'm
to
doing.
live is gone. Say goodbye to
No.
that nice hand, put it straight to the bottom.
Out of interest, talking about etiquette, how often do you guys feel the need to explain cards? And I'll tell you for why. And you guys know why this was.
Let me see.
So-
Every time Reese comes to my room with a new card, he sits there for
Okay.
sort of 5 minutes explaining it to me, not realizing I want to go to
So-
bed.
The round one game I had this past Thursday, I used Iono, and I didn't feel the need to explain it because I feel like a lot of people are very aware of what Iono does. I shuffled my hand, put it to the bottom of my deck, waited for my opponent to do whatever they were doing. They immediately, without even like any pause whatsoever, put their hand into their deck, and I was like, "Did you just put your hand into your deck?" And he went, "Yeah." I goes, "That's not what Iono does." And he went, "Oh, I forgot." And we called the judge over, and he said, my opponent said, "Oh, I can tell you exactly what cards just went in." And I was like, "So I don't know what they are."
Yeah,
Nor
it's
does
not
Tom
public
immediately,
knowledge.
judge immediately said, there's no way to prove that. So I did feel a bit bad, like, because it was a case of like, maybe I should have quickly explained what Iono does. It is a new card, but at the same time, I feel like if you come into a competitive event, you should have like a rough knowledge, or if you don't know what a card does, ask. Like, you know what I mean?
Honestly,
It's not. It was a weird one, but yeah, I just want to get your guys' feel on that.
like
Read
this
the card,
happened to me a lot, especially at EUIC, and for the most part, you don't really judge call it because it's just a simple mistake. But like Misfortune Sisters, the amount of people I had read that card, and then I'd play the card, they'd pick it up, read it before doing any actions to make sure doing it, and then they would still reveal the top rather than letting me look at the top, which 9 times out of 10, like, if they've done multiple deck searches, it's fine. They know what's in they somewhat know what's in the deck. Whereas like the one time I did have to judge call it, and it still amounted to nothing, was when my opponent like revealed, but they had done no deck searches up until that point. And
Yeah,
it
stacking watch, isn't it?
revealed 3 Mewtwo v Union pieces. and I'm there like, that's kind of important to know. And
Yeah.
like, obviously, Judge called it. Judge was like, warning, whatever. They then follow up the next turn with an adventurous discovery.
Of course, yeah.
it's like, okay, well, you knew they were in the deck, so that was a safe card to play. But yeah, it's weird. Like reading cards it happens to me a fair bit where people have to read my cards.
Yeah, including me.
The way to help that, at least I've always had a thing when it comes to coming to helping that, is to, if you don't know the player, assume they don't know. Or you go and play the card and you basically just read the room and you read how they're reacting to it. Is it a case that they look at it, or the trick I often do is you say what you're doing but in kind of a conversational way. So what I, especially with like whenever Marnie was there, it's like I would go, let's put the card to the bottom. I think I'll draw 4, you draw 5.
Yeah,
and you sort of go, you do it in a way in which to make sure you're right. Because obviously in the rules there's a problem of one person's mistake becomes both person's mistake because you didn't catch it.
Well,
so
I did.
so there's that kind of problem.
I do a very simple thing. Like I will verbally just say what the card does, for pretty much the same reason. And especially when you go into an event like a UIC or something like that, there's going to be non-native English speakers there. And me being a Brit, my only language is English. And like mild French, I can say like hello and goodbye. But for the most part, just English. And yeah, it's just a weird occurrence to where you can still explain verbally what the card does to an opponent, like to the T, or like what the result will be, and they'll still mess it up. And it's through no fault of their own. Like I remember the first time I read Marnie, like it completely went over my head, and I did the exact same thing that Liam's opponent did and shuffled it into my deck rather than put it on the bottom. And mistakes happen.
The language one's very funny because I remember spending the entirety of Liverpool going, man, I hope I don't end up playing against a European person. Not because I'm xenophobic, but because like I know full well the only way that English people are perceived if like they're not getting their words across is to say them louder, just like slower and louder. I was like, I don't want to have to do that because I know that's the only. I know full well they could be like, oh yeah, I played against this English person, and they went, you put 5 cards on the bottom, and it's like, oh no, I'm going to be that guy. I was just hoping I wouldn't have to become like, not necessarily a translator. That's not how that works, obviously. But like, I was hoping I wouldn't have to do the English thing of just like being louder and hoping that somehow got the message across.
William, the
Doing the old
user.
5 bottom, that kind of thing. Well,
No.
I mean, I played against somebody who was deaf at EIC, and that was a very interesting one because that was basically like playing. It was in silence.
Yeah,
and you were going, and it was
Anyway.
sort of, it depends really because it depends. I've often do the card. I say the card out loud because I always get worried about going too fast.
yeah, same.
So it was basically you would go. For instance, let's say you, I'm trying to think of a card here that would draw, let's say Babara or something like that, or Serena. That's actually a better example of Glenlugia. So you discard 2, and then you would go like that. So to go like that to make sure that the person knew, or to those of you on audio, just putting three fingers up to then they would go okay then, and it's very exaggerated movements basically. And so okay, and they actually were quite funny because they did the sign for idiot, which is very interesting. Where you pat your head, it was very very funny. It was very very good, but it was very not me obviously. They weren't patting me in the head. Don't go like a dunce hat, but it was
smacked his head at me. That'd have been a weird judge call.
They're very strange. Physical assault would be a very interesting judge call.
There's nothing in the rules that says you can't. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't think there is.
Well, no, I think
just legally.
Don't hit your opponent, I think is the more
Attack for 110. No, stop.
Attack you for 110.
See,
It's
Liam,
like in Magic when you go. It's like in Magic when you attack the player's life. It's like
Just want to,
you know that?
take this moment to make a PSA. Spit innocently isn't an instruction. It's just an attack on a Pokemon card.
Is it not?
That's what-
I've been playing that card once the entire time.
Yeah, I know you have.
But,
It depends
no,
what it depends what
Liam, I found you
company you're with.
mentioning
Liam.
firstly very funny because see, I had to also spend a game explaining all my cards to your lovely missus.
Oh, my partner's great.
Yeah, your partner, and obviously she's getting more into the game, coming
Mhm.
down more often.
Playing
And-
you. Ugh.
What? And
Blame
obviously,
you.
the way I did it was she was already familiar with most of the cards, so fair play. I played them, but I still tried to mention everything that I did and give her enough time to be like ask any questions. So I know one of the questions she had primarily was about Drapion.
Yeah.
So, poor girl. And I played the Drapion down. I did the thing. I attacked. And she asked me, okay, how can this happen? I explained to her the ability, the attack, and the complete sadness that Drapion exists. And I just think it's
It
a
has
nice
to
thing of like
exist.
making sure your opponent understands what you're doing. I guess
Yeah.
in card game terms, understand the game state. Because I
It-
actually don't know if Pokemon has this ruling. It'd be interesting to find out from you three. But I know again, Yu-Gi-Oh! At least, you can actually get judge called if your opponent does not understand the game state.
Yeah,
It
makes
actually
sense.
can be a judge call because the whole idea of the game is, as Andy mentioned earlier, both players are meant to be making sure the game state's okay and alright. But obviously, that can be ruined by one of the players just maybe not being sportsmanlike in a sense. So I don't know if Pokemon has that in a sense of if the game state is being messed up, can you call a judge?
The only example I can think of is when you declare an attack and
Yeah.
you move into the next, because really Pokemon really only has 3 phases,
Mhm.
arguably even 2, which is draw plus everything, and then there's attack phase.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's in between turns, but that kind of thing of if you declare an attack. So, for instance, let's say you save a lie with 9 in the lost zone,
Done that.
and you declare lost mine. You go into attack phase, and you must then use an attack that you legally can. So it becomes scratch 20. Is sort of what happens. Is what happens. That's kind of the best example you can think of from a state of play. Yeah,
Another one I think it was Mew.
Yeah, technical.
Yeah, when you declare
Oh, yeah.
Max Miracle, but you don't go Cross Fusion Strike Max Miracle.
Yeah.
Which is a
You-
very common mistake.
Very
You-
rule like following on that one.
I think the cross fusion one actually would that work in the sense of you have to do hang on because cross fusion is the
I
attack.
don't remember what it was. I remember there being a regional where someone accidentally went. They, through habit, they just went, "Okay, I'll use Max Miracle," but they didn't go through Cross Fusion and Max Miracle. I think
It's,
they ruled it as
See, funnily,
you tried attacking, you gave an illegal attack, it turns over, and I think I ended up losing the guy of the game if I remember correctly.
It's similar with Regidrago as well. No, nobody plays that, but you have to you have to actually like pick the attack out of the discard pile and say, "Oh, I use Apex Dragon for Rolling Iron for 200." You couldn't just go, "Oh, Apex Dragon," and then take the cards, assuming you've taken a knockout. You
Yeah.
do like you said with Max Miracle. You have to explain what attack you're using, how much damage it will do. Obviously, clarify the knockout and then take your prize cards. Because if your opponent doesn't know how you've suddenly taken prize cards, they can call a judge for you just lifting prize cards, and theoretically they wouldn't be wrong.
because you haven't actually mentioned what you used.
No, there's no.
It's like the old Perfection Mew, the old tag team one where you had these attacks and discard, similar kind of concept. Hello, cat. Similar kind
That
of.
just reminded me of a gentleman's agreement.
Oh.
I mean, I very often, rather than say the name of the attack, will just make a noise. And I think Matthew does the same thing, and you kind of do it sometimes. Like, Matthew will just, like, attack, and instead of saying the name of the attack, because he just assumes you know, he'll just go, like,
Oh yeah.
or I'll just, like, yell,
Yes,
"Boo!" Yeah, or I'll just yell,
Yes, that is a thing.
"Boo!"
That is.
Michael does that with Spit Innocently. He goes,
I
he
do,
picks up the
I
ball,
just go-
knocks it forward. And goes,
No, Michael's is he'll not say the attack. He'll just say the damage it did.
yeah,
He'll
I
go.
never say
On
the
one count.
entire. Do you know why? No, you know why? Because I can't be bothered with names. I'm awful at them. I've played Lost Box for so long, and even I don't remember like all the names. I just
I'm one of
To be
those.
fair,
bothered.
if you just go 110,
It's just,
and your
it's
opponent
hard.
goes, like,
there's only one
judge,
attack.
whatever,
George, it says 110 on it. That's the attack,
Well,
right?
it's not just that. It's like technically you didn't declare an attack name. You just said a random number.
Yeah.
So you can
240.
probably BS your way out of
All
that.
right, note to self: say the attack and you're against Reese. Got it. All right, no.
Yeah.
Oh no, I don't.
Yeah, it's harder.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's less of a problem when there's only one attack, because basically it's like, well,
Yeah.
you're in attack phase, declare an attack, there's only one attack anyway.
Yeah.
So
But
you don't
no,
really get the same problem.
I guess going back to pretending like this podcast has any form of structure. Sorry, Reese, love you. There's an interesting thing that's kind of come up this week, and I've been thinking about it a lot personally, between playing for fun and playing competitively. And it's a weird topic to talk about, because I'm of the opinion that fun and competitive are kind of two sides of the same coin, in a sense. And I guess I've experienced in the sense of, like, just because you're playing a janky, maybe off-meta deck does not suddenly make you not play competitively, in a sense. So, like, I guess in our current format case, just because you're not playing, Guardy or Lost Box does not suddenly mean you're not playing competitively. It just means you're playing a different deck, but still have the competitive mindset. You still want to win, and yada, yada, yada. But it's also, like, I don't know. I'm interested to see what you three think about the whole fun versus competitive. Like, do you think it's actually a thing? Like, is it, like, a myth that people are just used to saying at this point? And if you do think it's a thing, does it make you act or play differently?
I'll go last, because I got a lot saying that.
I
Yeah,
should
go last too.
I think everybody does.
I can speedrun it.
You go, Birdlin.
Okay, so we talked about this in a group chat a while back as well, a while back being this week. I definitely for the last 3 or 4 weeks have brought like some weird decks, not necessarily completely off meta, but certainly like, or not jank, but like certainly off meta. So quite often I'll be like, oh, what can I partner with Arceus to make it a bit more interesting? What can I do with this and that? Like Regidrago is a famous example I keep going back to. The problem is I want to enjoy the game, and I have fun with the game. I will say that, before anything else. But I do tend to get very competitive, and I get very salty very quickly when I'm not winning. And I fully am aware of that. And I was really bad after one particular session. It might have been the league challenge. I apologize in the group chat to everybody because you all know what I'm actually like. I'm generally okay. Happy-go-lucky guy, an all-round good egg, proper lad, true Brexit geezer. But no, for the most, not really. I voted Remain. Anyway, I get into my feelings a lot playing the game, and it's because I'm stupidly competitive to the point where I'm like, why do I punish myself trying to play off meta? Why don't I just pick up one of the decks that work? And for me, for a while, and this is kind of like not so much the case in the PAL format now, Arceus was still good, and Arceus is simple. I get on with Arceus, that's absolutely fine. To stay competitive, and I don't know how much you guys will agree with this, we are having to look at like decks that are a bit more complex. Like Lost Box requires a lot of thinking, Gardevoir requires a lot of forward planning, and there's a couple of Mew. I take the Mega out of Mew. Everyone does. Everyone say it's baby's first competitive deck. It still requires some forethought. Like you still have to think about like what you can safely get rid of. Like the amount of times I've seen people
power tabs for a Guardy.
Exactly. I've seen people burn through like 3 or 4 power tablets in a turn just to get one more draw off Genocide. I'm like, why? And then they've hit exactly what they need to almost win the game. It's like I don't understand it, and that's a mindset I will never get. Lugia is another one. I've just picked up Colorless Lugia, and to be fair, my first time, and we won't talk about specific examples. I actually played all right, but it's still a case of like I've got to learn a brand new archetype, and I think being taken out of my own comfort zone in the first couple of weeks, I absolutely hate it, and I'm like, I'm not doing well with this deck. I know it's because I don't know it well enough. I've not played it enough. But for me, I feel like, and this is a stupid mindset, I should be able to pick up anything and go, yeah, I'm good at this within 2 days. And the main thing is, and say what you want about live at the moment, it's already a dumpster fire. Dumpster fire? Yeah, dumpster fire. The amount of times I've picked up a deck, done really well with it in the first 2 games and gone, cool, this is my new deck. And then just like absolutely got trounced playing it in real life. And then obviously not having a great record continuing on life, whatever, bad hands or whatever. I blame the deck immediately and go, well, it ain't me, it's the deck. Stop playing the deck, and then I don't learn anything. So it's very much a case of like, I think the fun is there, and you can be fun and competitive at the same time, and I think who you play with definitely makes a difference. Like when I'm playing, if I've had a bad day, generally speaking, playing against Michael or Reese or Matt or a couple of people we know, just because it's the boys, the mood gets lifted that way. It really does. Like I can have a bad game all week and be absolutely, all day be absolutely fine. Thursday being an exception, but that's because I was already in a bad mood anyway, and I got tilted by like how bad.
Thursday didn't happen, Liam, it's fine.
Thursday didn't happen. Nobody can feel about
to
Thursday.
me and you, Thursday didn't happen.
I think fun and competitive can be done at the same time, but I talked about this last format on one of my own videos. I think it's hard to play fun decks in the current format because the fun decks don't require as much thinking, if that makes sense. Like playing Spider Ops Leafeon, really fun deck. It's just like get the 3 spiders, and the Leafeon does lots of damage, but it doesn't do enough to keep up with like your Gardevoirs and your Lost Box and stuff like that. And it's like, I jokingly put a tweet out and said, if you remove the top 8 decks from the meta, you could actually have a fun meta. But like realistically, I think depending on where you find, where you find where you find the fun in the game is like subjective. And I find more fun in winning than I do losing. And I think that's very obvious. But like, yeah, it's an odd one. It's an odd one. I think if you can find a deck, you can both be it's both fun to you and competitive. I think you found the golden grail, to be honest, because it is very rare to find, in my opinion, to find both. Like, God of War can be the most powerful deck in the world at the moment, probably is. I don't find it fun to play, and it's why I won't probably pick it up. It's just not an enjoyable deck for me. So I think that's my bet on it.
That thing of I don't think I've actually had fun playing a deck for a while.
Andy, I think that might be the most depressing thing we found on this podcast.
I get it. Really depressing.
Andy, that was dark.
I find the game. It's I can take it to much darker places, Michael.
It's a date. Going last because we know how dark it's going to get.
I find the game itself fun, and you find the people fun, and so on. But the actual decks that you play, or you choose to play, aren't usually the decks that you want to play. So my favorite attacks in the game, often the decks I love playing, are either decks where you do more damage for the energy on board, Darkrai, or we'll go back in time, Xerneas and Darkrai EX from Breakpoint, and these sort of. I love those kind of attacks because there's no ceiling. Or decks like United Wings or Lost March or Map Party again because there's very little ceiling in the attacks go on. And the problem is that very very rarely are those decks actually massively viable. So you're stuck then playing what you think is the best deck. Or Persephone, which actually was a very fun deck. I love that deck.
Yeah.
But like, that was the golden goose of a deck that was very good and also was a deck I absolutely adored playing. But then this is where the problem comes, is that from the point of like, is a deck fun to play? A deck can be fun to play because it wins.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wins. So a good example of this would have been, ironically, Luki is actually a very good example of this, where yes, it's a pain in the ass. Yes, it's the illusion of it being bricky because it's coin flips, even though roughly it's as consistent as anything else. You get the illusion of it being inconsistent because it's you don't have the same control over it.
You have that make or break moment with it.
Yeah.
Whereas like with Guardy, when you're drawing, you feel like you're constantly working towards getting that like rare candy Guardy. Whereas Lugia is like, I don't get to do the fun stuff with drawing. It's I flip a coin and that's the make or break.
Yeah. Even though consistently wise, it's equally as so this is the problem. So decks being fun to play can be is funny in one, and it comes back to play styles. We'll get on that later. But the idea that this deck is fun, for me it's usually it's fun because it wins and it does well, and you're not sitting there losing, because losing isn't fun. And that's kind of actually one of the illusions, actually one of the biggest issues gameplay wise of any card game, is that the fun and competitive thing basically is you still have fun with the game when you lose. That's really the big difference. So it's hard to do that whenever your deck doesn't work, because then you can blame two things. If you lose when both decks are running well and so on, that is quite fun, but it's also a pain in the ass because you just lost a really close game and it could have gone other way. And you go into the rabbit hole of what could I have done, what I should have done, that kind of problem, which can't be fun, which can be annoying and not that fun. But that's kind of the big difference. But yeah, from my point of view, a deck is fun when it does well and works. That's the big takeaway. And for me, for a while there, was actually Lugia. And I do have a joke with the people here. It is Stockholm syndrome. You do keep going back to it because of what it can do. And there's also that problem of I've put so much time into this thing. I know the matchups. I know what to do with the matchups. You'll get there eventually, but it's that kind of problem of, well, I can't stand playing this thing, but you do stand playing it when it wins, and that's the difference. Is a deck is fun when it wins. Is sort of point. That's I'll be honest, that's quite a cynical point of view.
Yeah,
But it's quite a dark. It's quite a dark point of view because it means that the fun you're having with a deck doesn't matter as long if you lose, which is, I think, true. Because then it becomes a case of, I'm doing this great thing, but it's pointless. It's all a bit of a Sisyphean task. The guy who pushed the boulder up the hill and it falls back. It's pointless. So it's quite a cynical point of view, I will admit. And I am quite, at that point, I've always been quite competitive with the game itself. Losing's horrendous. And another problem, losing whenever you know what you should have done is also a pain in the ass. But it's required because you have to learn from it. Because the tangent of this, I'm going to talk for quite a while here, but the tangent of this is whenever you lose, don't blame the deck, or more accurately, don't blame. Don't say to your friend, "I couldn't do anything." No, there was something you could have done. Was it deck choice? Was it deck construction? Was it the wrong counts? Was it the wrong action at a certain point? It's not always just luck, it's not always just luck. It can be luck, but it's very rarely luck.
I was going to say, I think the main times I get like proper salty with like how a game has gone, especially losing, it's like I look at anything that I've done first and I go, okay, how did I misplay? Like generally when I'm in my feelings, I'm sulking in the corner and just dead staring. I'm playing in the back of the game in my head. I'm like, what did I do wrong that caused this? And sometimes you can't always think of something straight away. Like, when you use Luminion, did you go for a judge rather than a research? Could that have made the difference? It's all this kind of stuff, and it's like I felt like the thing that upsets me the most is if I feel like I played well, because I'm quite negative. I always assume I played badly, but if I feel like I've played well and I've still lost because I've only drew a Snorlax, played it into the active, and had nothing else the entire time, and then just got donked from a ride on 220, I'm like, was that me? I couldn't have done anything, and that's more frustrating, I think, than just like losing after a well fought game. If you're down to 2 prize cards each and they take the last 2 and they're like, that was a good game, GG, that's fine. I can get over that. I can proper think about the game because it was a good game. Whereas just getting your ass kicked by misplays or like just pure donks, that is so endlessly frustrating, and there's different ways of losing, if that makes sense, and some are much worse than others.
What does Reese and Michael think?
I'll let Reese go because just like Andy, I'll be here for a while.
Yeah, so in terms of games, like if we include like video games as well as card games, I come from a very competitive background. I've always played games competitively to some degree. So like I used to play Halo, CS:GO, even League to an extent. Like my first game I properly got into was Command and Conquer, which is a pretty competitive RTS game. So I've always come from this competitive background. So for a long time, fun has been what gets me into it, but competition is why I stay. So the reason I stay with Pokemon is for a while I found a way of combining both, and I say for a while like it's a fleeting feeling, it's not going to come back. But what I find fun in Pokemon is making people sweat, making people think that they have the game wrapped up, and then completely sweeping the rug from under them. And I think that's one main reason why I gravitate towards control more so than any other archetype. I played normal decks, played Guardi, played Mewtwo Guardi, played Urshifu, played a lot of different decks. But I always find myself gravitating towards control because that's where I find fun. I find letting people think they have me and then they don't. And then also that butt clenching feeling of like, I think I now have you in a lock, but if you play a random tech card or you play one more energy than I think you're playing, I lose. Like I like that tension between it. And like when that's competitive, so when control is good in the meta, like maybe not, it's not 2019, it's not S tier. But if it's at least like B, C, B, where it can win, it has a good match spread, then I find the competitive side fun. But with me wanting to keep up with other players in the shop or just cups or challenges and stuff like that, like I found with control being in such an awkward spot, I'm playing decks like Guardian. I really do not enjoy Guardi, but I still want to stay kind of at that high level that I've been working towards. So like I feel like sometimes they can be one and the same, and I think other times they are completely different. So like if you're playing, what's that pre-constructed deck they give you on live at the moment with Fortress, where you flip the coins for the amount of energy. That is a super fun deck, but it's not competitive. It really is not competitive. So I feel like, yes, sometimes they are one and the same, and sometimes they're not. But like one weird question I kind of have is, if you're a competitive player or you're playing a competitive deck, you're playing for the win, and you're going to get somebody who purely plays for fun, is it then BMing to not maybe take game when you have game, so that they get their fun aspect and they get to play and they get to think it was close game? Is that BMing, or is that more being inviting and not enticing them, making them want to continue playing for fun?
I have done that. Sorry, I have not done the correct play before, knowing that I'm going to win anyway, to try and make it more fun for them. I have done that before.
Yeah, same.
Where I have, but now there is the thing where often what I do is, if I've got two ways to play the game, like for instance on Thursday, I said to one of the players I was playing again, well, listen, I've got a fun way to beat you or the correct way to beat you. Which way would you like to see? Then sort of and obviously mostly they go, I'll just give me the normal one. But sometimes you get the person who goes, oh, let me see the fun way. As a fun way, and you go, okay, you go for the more funny way of doing it rather than just the like boss for game or whatever.
Amber Pom was the deck.
Oh yeah, good old Amber Pom.
Like that's super fun, and like realistically, if Lady Luck's shining down on you, it has a decent match spread. If Lady Luck's really feeling it.
It made the Lugia list, and on the Japanese list of deck lists that was being made, there was an Amber Pom list.
Yep.
It was only one.
Wheaties are great anyway. Back God, 2 prizes.
Why play the game correctly when we can just have a bit of fun? You know? But that actually is about deck choices, and that's more of a problem with newer players, where it's like you give them a deck list that's fine, and then the cogs turn in their heads, and they're going, well, what if I played this? And you're like, you could, but you're making the deck worse.
That is Matthew.exe.
That is Matthew Anderson.
Liverpool IceQ in Lost Box just so he could play the Reggie matchup to a draw. Okay. That was it. And it cost him so many games.
Espeon and God of War.
Yeah.
Liam,
matchup. No, it doesn't.
Liam, we don't talk about that. I'm not allowed to be roasting people too hard. I've been banned.
We didn't mention words or the names even.
I don't want to go on about my rant about how awful that card is.
It's a shame actually, because it was going to make Shadow Rider work, and it didn't. So
I'm sick of Klefki.
Okay, I'm just going to make a statement. Espeon and Guardi is bad.
It is.
Stop it.
It is. You know it's bad when an entire regional, you've got 90% of Guardi players go Espeon, and then the winner of that regional didn't run Espeon. And the guy's just there being asked about his Lost Box match and goes, yeah, it's easy. Shut up, don't run Espeon.
You just got to keep tempo. That's
Turns
it.
out Cresselia is really good. I know, what a
Yes,
shout.
it is. Shelly is
Wow.
very good.
Anyways, Sableye the problem, by the way. Anyways, I think it's my
Yeah.
turn to talk about this interesting topic. And I know you three had your fun, especially Andy. Very fun. On that note, though, I think me and Andy, and I've said this before, are actually very similar in our mindsets to an extent. When I guess Liam called it like the golden goose or got a bit of luck. Lost Box for me is that like fun, but also very competitive, very tier 1, very strong deck right now. And the thing is, I've always been competitive. So just like Reese, I got into a lot of competitive gaming when I was younger. League, unfortunately, being one of them. And I play a lot of card games, and especially in terms of Pokemon. Despite the jokes in our group about all I play is Lost Box, yada 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 yada.
It's not a joke, it's a fact.
Yeah, but I also play a lot of decks on my own time, a lot of different decks. Like online, I don't play Lost Box. I don't touch the deck. Like it's why I'm.
Have you muted yourself, Liam?
Liam, I don't recommend muting yourself. But no, like online, I do spend a lot of time playing other decks. I've played Guardi, Shampoo, yada 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 yada.
Doing Electrode.
Yeah, I've played Electro, best deck of the format. I even sat there on the Copium and tried making Meowscarada work. P.S. Don't do it.
Yeah.
But no, I'm of the opinion that like fun and competitive are two sides of the same coin. Because as Andy said earlier, and I do absolutely agree, no one likes losing. I don't. No one does. It's never fun.
I don't like that analogy.
Yeah.
You flip the coin.
Yeah.
It can land on fun.
Yeah.
It can land on competitive.
They
Really?
are two sides. They're two sides of the
On
same
the
coin.
edge.
They are literally the same thing. Which is why I've never enjoyed the concept of fun and competitive. Like, because like think of it this way: you can play in your quotations a fun deck, or I guess a deck that I've been memeing on that I need to stop memeing on as much now is Darkrai. A lot of people are into this meta being like, "Oh, Darkrai's awful, it's cheeks." And to be fair, last format I still stand by that the deck was cheeks. But I won't lie, walking into this new format, it's looking like Darkrai might actually not be as much of a joke as I thought it was. Turns out, having a Dark type deck in a meta where 2 Psychic decks are like top tier is really good. But no,
Yeah.
like I think it's interesting is like just because your deck is maybe a little bit more off meta, a little more janky, maybe more untraditional, that does not suddenly mean you're not playing it competitively. Like
It's the
Liam,
thing,
you
isn't
walked
it?
into those weirdest of decks, but you are still there to win. You still want to win.
With
And you have a
this thing with the meta, like one joke this set might become like one of the best decks in the next set simply because of like a weakness coverage or one card that makes it better.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people said God of War wasn't fantastic, but like it had 2 new cards and now suddenly it's amazing. And yeah, you mentioned Jet Energy.
Best deck in the
Everyone's
format.
saying why would you play Lost Giratina last set? Jet Energy being added just suddenly made it like worth playing because
Yeah,
it
don't
just,
remind
it
me. I
helped
may have to
so
pick
much.
up Tina's. Don't remind me, please, Liam.
No, you don't need to get Tina's.
They
I'm
are
the guy.
cheap, and I may sadly have to pick up Tina's because, anyways, it doesn't. We're not talking about that. But no, anyways, no, I think the parallel's quite interesting. I guess in my own personal standpoint, it's the fact that whenever you get into a game, you obviously, as I said before, you're getting their attention to win. The most fun is when you win. I agree with Andy that the most fun is when your decks work. So I'm of the opinion of a really good game is when both decks have worked, no bricking, no rubbish, and it's been a genuine, very fun back and forth game. And I think this is it. But again, I don't like the whole idea of fun versus competitive. I think it's a myth. I think it's stupid. I think that's pretty much the same thing. You will have fun. You're naturally competitive as a person and as people because we always want to win. We want to do better. We want to play better. But because of that, it's fun. It's naturally fun. But yeah, no, I thought it was interesting. But no, it's kind of like, I also understand where Andy came from a lot. I guess me and Andy have a lot of very similar opinions. It's quite scary, actually. I understand what he means when he's like finding a deck that you enjoy, but there might just not be one. So like in your case, you're not really the biggest fan of playing Lugia, but you kind of had to because it's Stockholm Syndrome. And with me, it's like, I do love Lost Box. I'm very lucky. A deck like Lost Box is tier 1. It's very good, and I luckily do enjoy it. But I'm also sat here, the full-on acceptance, and I do meme it, but it is true of, if it does genuinely get kicked out of the format, I will just slap it in the binder and move on to my life. Which is very depressing, and I hope it doesn't happen, but you never know. Because just like with Liam, I agreed with him, I also don't enjoy Guardi. I've played it several times, I've tried it several times, and I can't I don't know what you love about it.
Guardy.
That's actually, yeah, do you know what? I don't want to get into that because, again, I don't want to tangent too much. But Guardy is a weird that, like, not many people actually enjoy it, but it's too powerful to deny it.
I didn't enjoy playing it on Thursday. I didn't enjoy it.
I mean, I just
enjoyed it.
I sat there and just watched you Iona me 8 times in a series and went, all right, cool. Anyways,
the one variant I enjoyed
I don't.
was like
Mewtwo.
Literally Mewtwo Guardy, and that's just because I love Mewtwo V Union as a card.
Well, it's also a based build. Like, I was talking to you about it that night of how I actually really love what Mewtwo Guardy's become in this format. You just run every single weird Pokemon imaginable with reversal energy and just look at your opponent and go, I will suddenly combo and beat you out of nowhere. Have
Explosion.
Like, they're running like the Gallades, and I'm just there like, you know what, this is actually really cool. I wish it was good. I'm so sad it's not good.
It is good.
No, it's not. It's okay, buddy. But no, like, but yeah. But at the same time, I do agree with Liam that there are certain decks that you just sadly can't play. Like, just like I also really want to play United Wings. The deck is so cool, so fun, but it's so bad.
It's doing well at late nights.
It's not.
It's very. The problem is it's got a very terrible matchup against one of the best decks.
Yeah, no, admittedly, its Lost Box matchup is basically non-existent.
It's
You are not
useless.
You cannot win. But even outside of Lost Box, it actually has other bad matchups. Like, try playing it against goddamn Arceus. You ain't hitting
Arceus horrendous. Arceus is really bad.
You are not killing a single one of their Pokemon.
No.
You just sat there with some dumb birds while they're just, constantly Iono or pathing you.
Dumbozo.
No, not pathing.
Really,
Well,
Dundozo.
other examples of decks that I do enjoy that maybe people might not know, and I will play this Lost Box, yada yada. Despite Liam memeing me, I actually really do like Electrode. I think Electrode is based. I love it. Spicy Curry is a great card. That's all I'm gonna say.
You know what
Spicy Curry.
What would completely ruin your deck though?
Silence.
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 Like, just imagine this doesn't exist, but imagine if it did. You force your opponent to have the effect of a special energy, and they just throw a therapeutic energy on your Hisuian Electrode. It just could not be hurt whatsoever. You just doing no damage.
I'll be unfriending you very soon. Don't worry about it. But like other decks, like also like they're fun that I can't play. Like Ice Rider. I can't play Ice Rider. Like God, I love it. Every time I look at Ice Rider, I'm like, I want to play it, but why would I?
Yeah,
I never really understood the appeal.
Yeah, I know you find it confusing every time I mention it. I just love the card.
That's the big issue, isn't it? When you have a card you love, but you can't play it, and you can't think of a good reason.
I can't play Electrode.
When the only reason you've got is it's fun. Like that's a business
name.
At the
same time,
it's bad.
losing like a million times is not very fun, and I'm not. We're not that cynical, and that's just the way reality is. Like we all want to win. We don't like losing.
It's shit paying £5 to lose. What's the point?
I mean, I basically paid £5 Thursday.
Why are we?
So I think I kind of understand it now.
Why are you doing it?
I don't know. We're evil people. But no,
there's other reasons. There's other reasons. There's friendship and there's hobby and all that kind of like other reasons.
You do it to get away from life. But anyways, before we get too in deep and too emotional, no, it's been quite interesting to hear everyone's opinions on this topic. I think it's a very, as I said before, very debatable. You can argue both sides. I'm of the opinion that it's a myth, but we won't get into it anymore. But leading on to that, to our next topic, and again, pretending like there's any form of structure. So there's been a lot of topic this recent week about playstyles. A lot of people have been talking about like players and their playstyles, how they play, act, deck builds. So it's interesting to ask all of us, like, what kind of playstyles do you have and have you met? Like, what kind of people, how they build, how they play?
I'm afraid of prize cards. That's my playstyle.
Reece, you're afraid of attacking. That's your problem.
Playstyles is complete bollocks.
I absolutely agree.
But but we'll ignore that problem.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I think playstyles are bollocks.
It's complete. There is a correct way to play a deck.
I absolutely agree. I think playstyles are bollocks. I think this whole myth of you gotta do this specific.
There's players who may prefer types of decks. So
That's
you'll find
what I meant in the notes.
Yeah. But like, it's still relevant to like.
Yeah. So basically, it's like so. For instance, like I always used to love aggro stuff because they were simple and they were easy. Because you just go.
You told me your Edison deck. I don't believe you.
That every other game. I'm not.
Evil.
In Pokemon is different, but when it comes to Yeah, Pokemon, I used to always go for what deck kills you quicker. I was always off that kind of ilk, and I always found it very. I'm terrible at spread stuff. I hate spread stuff. That's why I always find Sableye a pain in the ass, because
He is.
it's. I'm really bad at making sure the counts are correct, and then I'll always get a problem. I was never good at spread stuff. But then the problem is that that's practice. So you would get better at that eventually, the more you did it, and the more you know, and the more you played it. So basically, but I'll give an example. I have played in. Let me think here. One big event was the EIC and a load of League Cups. Not any one of those League Cups did I play at the same deck. Every single one of them was different. It was either Buzzwole Lycanroc, or it was Gardevoir Tag Team, or it was Lugia, or it was Mewtwo Mew, or it was Trempozar. Going back in time now quite a bit, but I didn't play the same deck twice. Not because of anything bad. It wasn't like I lost and then didn't play it again. It was just because I thought, what deck will give me the best chance of winning this event?
Mm.
And it was so. Is that a playstyle, or is that just that's not really play? You're trying to pick the best deck that you think is going to work.
It's less playstyle than just picking what feels not just good to you, but you feel confident with. It's like I think a good way to explain it.
Being a meta checker, or being somebody who's that can be quite difficult sometimes when you're constantly trying to figure out what the meta of a shop is, or who's. Oh, I'm going to play this because I know the shop is mainly this kind of deck. It's impossible for shops that are too far away. So then it becomes a case of what do you think is doing well, what do you expect to see, all that kind of nonsense.
I can't wait for someone to do it to me and I walk into like Blissey control.
Well, you see?
It's not good.
I don't care.
I can tell you that much.
If everyone wants to give a Lost Box, I'm ready.
But you can play anything if you don't want to win, you can play whatever the fuck you want. So sky's the limit. We don't care. You can I'll leave back onto the what's the point, but that's a different problem.
Yeah, that's a different topic.
I think aggro control. What's the third one? Is it mid range? I'm not sure. What does mid range mean?
Mid range is kind of like I don't know how to. It's hard to explain in Pokemon. I won't lie to you, but I guess in Yu-Gi-Oh standards, it'd be when you're still playing proactively, while still accepting you're still accepting the fact that okay, if I get stopped, I can go back to my control options.
Stun.
And not stun.
So you would argue, okay, so a good example of that would be, let's say, Flying Pikachu, where you are being aggressive, but you're also controlling the game.
I think the problem is in Pokemon is actually, I won't lie to you, Pokemon is very hard to describe mid-range, just because of the nature of the game. I think in the current format, at least the only deck I'd be calling mid-range is maybe Tinglu, in the sense that if you get a really good start, it can be really aggressive. Obviously, you have the turn 1 Dino Cry. If you actually are like Lady Lucky and hit your gutsy pickaxes with the energies, then that's where it becomes proactive and aggressive. But then more likely than not, it's a lot slower, but because of that, it's got a lot more control aspects. I mean, that's probably the only deck I could probably use as an example.
Blissey.
Sorry, I said decks.
Okay.
Here, if you put 60 cards into it into sleeves, that's technically a deck.
Legally speaking.
If it's legal, it's legal. So it's
59 energies and 1 Mew.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't test me.
Based.
59 energies and 1 Radiant Steelix.
Nice.
Oh no, Leon, I'm actually interested in your answer, to be honest. Like, do you believe in this idea of like having a playstyle, but even more than just that, like, do you always gravitate to certain decks, certain like way of building, etc., etc.?
Definitely certain deities he does.
Yeah, he just loves it when his opponent look at him and go, "Nice path."
I had a favorite deck type, and then for some reason the Pokemon Company decided to print Manaphy, so I was no longer able to enjoy the game. This is a little bit going back
for a while.
I'll go back to like a former thing, but like not feeling the fun with the game and with decks in general. Like Manaphy completely ruined an entire like deck archetype for me, which was bench damage. Like I genuinely enjoyed Jolteon so much, and it wasn't because it was a heavy hitter that was like taking one shot knockouts. It was tactical, man. It was like, oh, I need to potentially take that out and that out. Okay, damage counter there, damage counter there. We start hit with the Jolteon to take out what we need to, and it was just, yeah. I'm limited on experience. I've only played Pokemon really, Hearthstone as well, but yeah, whatever. Yeah, the main game I played and put actually thought and effort into is Pokemon, and I found I don't know the best way to describe what kind of deck it would be, but like bench damage was like one of my favorite ways of playing it. Since then, it's been like, well, how can I play a simple deck that doesn't require too much thinking? And yeah, you're right, Arceus. What?
Yeah.
It's very much a case of like, I love a deck that needs 2 or 3 parts, and we can just find the third part very easily. Just get into the game so quickly. And it's not even like, back in the day when it first came out, it was, decent for damage. Nowadays, 200 or 180 just isn't going to cut it against most decks. But it's still fun to play, and I like the idea of like thinking of different partners that go well with Arceus. Like, go back to the bench damage thing. I had the opportunity to play like Sandaconda with like Duraludon and Arceus, and that was really fun, and made it even more fun by the fact that 2 of the players that were there that I played against played electric decks, and I just destroyed them. That was pretty great. But like being able to do things against God of War, like if anyone I shouldn't shout at my own channel, but like
Go
I
for it.
had
Go for it.
on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Jestertainment, also YouTube with the same name, there's a video where I play Sandaconda versus God of War. And my God, it's one of the most fun fun games I've ever had, where I hit for 60 into a Ralts, didn't quite knock it out. They retreated. They kept it in place. Did 20 across the board to everything else. They evolved it up to a Curlier, and then they were like, cool, I'm safe. I didn't let them be safe. I bossed one of their other Curliers, which had 20 damage on it. The other Curlier went back to the bench with 60 damage on it. There was a Mew with 20, another Ralts for 20. I moved 20 of Radiant Alakazam to the Mew, and I took 3 prize cards in one hit, taking out 2 Curliers and a Mew, and it was like one of the best feelings I've had. That was so fun. And it was just like, oh man, I remember bench damage being so much fun. And bench damage could be even more fun with Radiant Alakazam existing. But like, we just don't have the opportunity to play stuff with bench damage so much. Rapid Strike box.
I was going to say, you should not
being
be
one
saying
thing.
that when Ushu's on the rise.
Listen, it's still not a good deck.
You've not been keeping up with the results.
I have been. It's still less than 50% win rate. Anyway, that's not the point.
Hard to play.
Man, it's just like, yeah. I had an archetype that I enjoyed, and that reminded me of it. And I just don't feel like I can still play that type anymore because Manaphy exists. But yeah, going back to like what we were talking about originally. I think the playstyle thing is a weird one because I feel like certain people excel better with certain decks. Like, for me, the simplest way to play a deck is probably the best way for me. If I have to start thinking too much, I could probably maintain that for a game or two. And some people thrive on that. Like, some people love a good, like, I've got to think about all my actions. And, like, they see the matrix and they see all the numbers. They're thinking 5 turns ahead. They know what they're doing. And I'm just there going, as long as I can get double turbo and switch this turn, I'm absolutely fine. And that's all I need. It's not. I know it's a weird thing to want to be competitive and play simply, but that exists in Pokemon, which I really enjoy. And I think that's probably probably the play style for me. I'm not a big thinker.
No, that's fair. Also, William, I still disagree on you on the Urshifu thing, but that's not relevant right now. Reese, what? I can't believe I'm asking this. I can't believe I'm even asking this question. Same question to you then, I guess, about play styles and deck choices and et cetera, et cetera. I can get it for myself.
Playstyles, I definitely agree that every deck has its optimal way of being played. There is a clean-cut way of how you should play a deck, and deck choice and stuff fan out into that. So I think playstyles in the regard of how you should play a deck or how you should build a certain deck, I think for the most part is a myth. There's different ways of building a different deck, but then that just means the route changes rather than how you should play it changes. So it's like the best example, like Mewtwo v Union Guardy and normal Guardy. Like, normal Guardy for the most part is the better way to play the deck, although the Mewtwo gives you certain upgrades to match spread, so I don't think either are wrong, but but I think the way you play them is drastically different. And there is an optimal way to go about playing them. But in terms of like deck choices and stuff, like for the most part, I like playing decks that don't take prizes and win through other means. Like I don't like really winning through conventional methods, or like just decks that make it difficult on you. And I think that's why I ended up taking Blissey to Liverpool. It wasn't the best deck. It had control elements in, but then it's like just really funny to heal off the entirety of a Sableye damage, like with one card, and be like, well, your turn was a waste. And keep judging them and stuff like that. Like, it was super fun. And that's sort of the playstyle I gravitate towards, because, you know, it's unconventional. I like unconventional decks, but not bad decks. Unconventionally good decks.
Sure. You totally didn't, brew up the Zoroark control for like a month now.
Yeah. It's got a good match, but if you build it right.
But no, I guess leading on to that, I'll make mine super fast because we don't want to take forever on this. I don't agree with playstyles. I think it's a bunch of rubbish. I think it's just, once again, kind of like the previous thing we talked about. I think it's just a concept that over time has just been kind of disproven. I do agree that certain decks obviously play differently. This is why the whole idea of aggro, mid-range, control, combo, yada yada yada. You've heard these terms before. I've kind of come in, and obviously every deck has to be played in a specific way. Like Guardy's actually a really good example. You cannot play normal Guardy and Mewtwo Guardy in the same way, or else you're just going to lose. It's like, don't even try it. I mean, unless you get really lucky, like Reese and Pokestop like 3 of the Union pieces away, but we won't talk about that. Totally didn't happen against
all 4 Kirlia's prize plus Peonia, Pokestops 3 away, Ultra Ball the other, and still won that
Anyways,
game.
I'm still in pain. Reese is very skillful at the game. But no, like I love my, like, as Liam, like I said, using my brain cells. I love every time I make a play a decision. I love it. I sit there and I get fueled by it. I went through obviously EOIC playing Lost Box for like 8-9 rounds, and I loved every second of it. I love being in those tense moments of there's one decision I can make will win or lose me the game. Like one mistake and I'm done. And I love decks like that. It's in every game I've played. I for some reason gravitate towards making my life a living misery and making my brain cells sweat. But on that note though, something that's very interesting, very different between us two actually, is I hate control. I hate it with a burning passion. I cannot sit there down and play control. I find it boring. I sit down, I look at control and go, okay, I'm going to fall asleep and just go on my phone for half an hour. My opponent tries to do something. But
control
again,
requires a lot of thought.
Yeah, I'm memeing.
Because
I'm not obviously,
one mistake is the exact same.
Yeah, I'm not obviously being serious. I have tried control decks. I am goddamn awful at them, as you can probably imagine. But it's also not the kind of style I enjoy playing. I'm not a big fan of the slower game styles. Kind of like Andy in a sense. I love big damage. I love winning as fast as humanly possible. There's a reason I've been gravitating towards Turbo Box all the time. I just love it. I love just killing my opponent as fast as possible. Move on to the next game. But yeah, nice, sweet, fast. I guess that leads on to another hopefully very fast question that I think I just want to ask everyone. Just a quick fire question of, what is the best feeling? Like, just a quick answer. What is the best feeling you have in Pokemon? So I guess I'll start off in my sense. I love Aqua Storming and taking 5 prizes. Best feeling in the universe. When you Aqua Storm, you kill a VMAX, Duraludon Arceus. Sorry, Liam. It's a great feeling. You just sit there and you're like, yes, give me the prizes. But no, I'm interested to see what you three's quick fire best feeling is. Reese, you wanna start us off?
Definitely top decking the one card that you need to win the game, and you had no goddamn way of getting that card if you didn't top deck it.
Are you just describing Liam's playstyle?
No, not
I love you, Liam.
It's.
I'm not going to roast Liam this podcast.
Listen. It's part of the dynamic. Plus, I think it's a good skill to have. I've seen your videos.
What are you talking about?
Gee, all right. The best feeling for me is when someone doesn't hand a shot you when you have game in hand. That's the moment that somebody plays up a Research, or they play a Clara or something else like that, and you know for a fact that they didn't disrupt you, you win, is a really good feeling. Not to also be my original answer was going to be just winning, but that would have been
Would've been a fair
pointless.
answer.
What do you want? Winning.
Just winning is like just but no, that's definitely a cool one. Is knowing you're not getting hand disrupted, but then that's an offshoot of winning.
No, I
Um,
like the original one. Just winning.
Yeah,
Nice,
just
quick,
winning.
and simple. Liam, I'm curious of your answer.
Following off what Michael said, my favorite thing is when you seen Kyoga come down, they're about to Aquastorm, and then they realize a Manaphy's on the bench. That's pretty
Hey,
good.
wait, whoa! What do you mean
That's,
following up on what?
pretty good. Hey, I can give you a real life example of my new absolute favorite feeling in the world. I was testing Meowscarada on stream, which, disgusting, I know. Somebody went to Radiant Charizard. They were like, oh, right, yeah, I might be able to get a game if I can put damage counters down. They pathed themselves and then realized they couldn't use Radiant Charizard. And I got spammed with emotes, and then they conceded. And I was like, that was an amazing feeling. That was probably the best feeling I've ever felt in this game. You gave me the game.
Ability lock, and people who ability lock themselves and then use abilities. That's a good one.
Oh,
You-
man, Spirit
that's a
Tube
good
and
one.
Lumini on the same turn.
Yeah, like what?
Yep.
That's a good feeling.
Oh, like when you play down a path and then immediately put down a Lumini you.
Yeah,
And it's
that,
just
you're like,
one-
the sequencing was wrong.
Like a Spirit Tube and played Luminion, and then forgot about
Yeah.
the Spirit Tube.
Yeah.
No
Oh,
offense,
We love
no,
your map, by the way. We've mentioned it
no
like
offense
4
to
times.
no offense to Michael. Sableye with 9 in Lost Zone.
That was once.
That's
I want to
also-
make that quote. I've been playing
that's
the
also
deck
a
for so
level-
long, and I've only done it once. Leave me alone.
that actually is a great feeling. Is when the Sableye
Oh,
with
it's
9.
not a
and-
great feel. I've done it once, and it was the worst time of my life.
To be fair, I remember again just you, Andy, when you were playing Lugia, and I put a double turbo on the Yveltal, and then played a Temple of Sinnoh down to get like I can knock these energies off and make the energies next turn not work, and it was like, wait a minute, it's just similar to like pathing yourself when you play down
You and-
Zard.
You and Temple don't have a great relationship now that I think about it. Oh, like Liverpool and the Temple Sinnoh.
Yeah.
It's okay, sweet.
Yeah, I get Temple of Sinnoh.
I love it, but I never play a deck that cares about it.
I love it and hate it at the same time.
I miss Chaotic Swell, which none of you guys probably played
Yeah,
with, but I miss
oh,
Chaotic Swell.
I'm too...
Isn't that the one where you can evolve on the turn you play a card?
No, that's Broken Times. Basically, Chaotic Swell was basically a if somebody plays a stadium over it, both get discarded. So it gave you a way to stop would have been power plant at the time, but it gives you a way to stop other stadiums. So if your deck if your deck didn't play a stadium, you could play that and basically stop other stadiums. It was a great card. It's such a wasn't well designed, but it was fun. it was a good
Or
card.
like, what was that other
we'll never
one
do it again.
where you can have like up to 9 Pokemon on your bench?
Turn
That was
is
Skyfield. That was Skyfield.
Yeah, Skyfield. Yeah,
Well, Skyfield was 8. It was 9 in total, but it was 8 on the bench.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
4
it basically-
comfies. Oh, it'd be beautiful.
The
I
best
still
was
feel like
going.
Beach Court would still be better for you.
I do not care. I want the satisfaction of having 4 comfies. Be beautiful.
Plays
Skyfield was
down a
fun.
bench of 8 and Lost Box trying to turbo. Next turn bumps the stadium. I
No,
don't
no,
know.
No, you could run the Greninja V-Union and just go...
Yeah.
Or you could go Avery and just discard 5.
Avery's not real, it's fine.
Oh,
Wasn't
if you'd be
real.
brutal in that
Yeah,
situation.
no, it's fine. Avery's not real.
Because
Every discard fight Collapse Stadium.
What
Rebuild,
would be the
please.
better
No.
feeling? Averying the opponent and then seeing them have to go down to 3 from 8, or playing a counter stadium first, then thinking, oh, I can get rid of these 3, and then playing the Avery and going, oh no, I should have kept those ones. I got ruined.
Yeah, counter. Playing or collapsed.
Oh,
before.
yes.
But the best was if you played was a Sudowoodo, which basically was collapse but an ability.
Yeah. Roadblock, wasn't it?
Yeah, roadblock and basically you go roadblock and Skyfield works for you, but not for the opponent. which is a fantastic little
Pokemon
bit.
really sounded fun. Huh?
That'd be really funny.
I mean, we're
Skyfield,
sort of going
which I
in-
missed.
We're sort of going into the topic of what's changed And
which is
or a topic of what's changing the game. I can give you a whole list of things
yeah.
that
I
I've
was
noticed.
shockingly enough, I don't think they're gonna want to be here for another extra 5 hours.
No,
For the
I'll-
only
I'll
topic
not
of
go.
what's
I'll not go too in depth. But the one big thing I've definitely noticed is that whenever I joined the game in very late 2016, 2016, the game was before item garb. So basically, it was kind of like now, where you could play items and nobody cared, and everyone had a trainer's mails and max elixirs, and
I've
there
watched
was
videos
VS
on that.
Seeker. Great game for the game for the world, and like you. But then Garb came, changed that, and then eventually we kind of back to normal. But what I've noticed is that they're very reluctant. It's a great example is they're making a new card in Obsidian Flames, which is Letter of Encouragement, which basically went, well, we have Professor's Letter, which is basically a universal capacious bucket. Let's give them a card which is worse. And you're sort of going, okay, can we have Letter? No.
No.
So you can't. It's like they're giving cards back, but in a weird way.
Yeah.
So,
Or they're doing it, or they're making it Pokemon based, or they're making it like we're getting to the point now where, like, for instance, Lugia, which is a deck which we'll come back to, I'm sure, in the future. In the colorless build, the only items you play, at least in theory, are technically this is true because tools aren't items anymore. But the only items you play are Ball Search or Pokemon Search.
Yep.
And in the single strike version, it's Ball Search plus Urns,
Mm.
and that's the count. And that's
Yeah.
That's maddening to me because
And you-
I'm from an era where you played loads of different things.
Versus
Reset stamp and
Just play the spell.
Lost Box. I mean, Lost Box is basically where you go to your binder and all the switch cards you've added, you just go.
Pretty much. You go to your binder and go, oh, I love drawing 3 from Pokestop. And then you play Pokestop and go, okay, never mind.
Discard the 3 comfy.
It was
Oh,
actually really funny because that happened to me on Thursday, where my Lost Box opponent played Pokestop, used the Pokestop, milled 2 Pokemon and a supporter, and then I, using God, he was bricking, and I used it, and I got 3 ball searches, and I was like, this. Well, it was a Fog Crystal level ball Ultra Ball. That completely unbricked me for that first game. I mean, it's a shame, Shine Arcana and Cresselia was prized against Lost Box, and they were the top 2. I know it wasn't Shine Arcana. This was God What EX.
This is round 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a shame.
But no, I guess, leading up to the end of the structure, as I like to call it, Reese, I know this is your favourite part. You've been excited
is.
for this part.
Oh, let's be fun.
Go
It
on.
is time
Ow.
for.
I like how whenever Reese yells, the mic cuts out ever so
Yeah,
slightly.
like whenever
Yes,
Reese
it's
yells,
good.
it's either playing a game or my eardrums are about to explode.
Right.
It's
So-
nothing makes you look rinky dink like your microphone's peaking.
if you will all check your Facebook messages,
Oh dear
I'm about
God.
to send the image of this week's Justify My Jag. And for you watching at home, it will have just appeared on screen. This
What
is
in
the
the
card.
What the?
And the way this is going to work is I'm going to have you guys only justify 1 card. I know it's 2 cards on the last episode, but there's more people to talk about it. And yeah, so the way I'm going to do it is, Andy, I want you to justify first, and then Liam, and then Michael.
Do I have to?
Yes,
Right.
you do.
So this is a Bramble Gas, which obviously it's a stage 1, so you need to play the evolving Bramble and Bramblin, and this means that it would definitely work in a deck that would have grass energy anyway. So I could see it working in Giratina, where you're obviously playing that grass energy already, and it gives you a nice 1 prize attack. You could play a Tropius, or you can maybe even play this and try and do a bit of a control aspect where you are making sure they can't retreat, or maybe, for instance, against a Lugia, it'd be very, very interesting, or where they can't retreat, or their attacks become worse because they need to use more energy and so on. So it gives you a bit of a controlling aspect into Giratina. Obviously, works on anything that will have Gardenia's Resolve. You could even play it in Regidrago because again, you're playing grass. Anything sort of will play that grass energy, or even if you are being honest, it is also double. It's all colorless, so in theory, you could even play it in Lugia. You could play it as a little Lugia counter. So what you could do is you can use it in you evolve it in Love Lug in the mirror match, and you can make sure that they need to use more energy so they run out quicker. You could use it in any sort of deck that has that kind of acceleration. Obviously, can't use it in Arceus because Arceus kind of fell out to it. So there is what I believe you could use the Jank for.
I won't lie. The entire time I've just been staring at Liam and just the
The
look at him.
excitement
He looks
and
so. It's like I'm in my element.
I've been waiting all week.
I've already built a deck of this card in it. Reese is a fool.
Okay then. I mean, overall, good sales pitch. You actually went through actually trying to make it playable, which is like weird because although that's the goal of the segment, the other two just kind of go a completely different direction. So, Liam, I'm ready for your sales pitch.
Right, are you ready? Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce to you the one, the only Brambleghast. That's right, Brambleghast. You thought Pokemon were out of ideas for Pokemon? This is King Tumbleweed, baby. And look at the smile on its face. It knows it's Tumbleweed. It doesn't care. There's not a thought behind that face because there's no brain to think. And you can see that. You can't accuse this Pokemon of being dumb. It doesn't know that it can be dumb. It doesn't know it can be anything. It's Tumbleweed. Anyway, what are you looking at? We're looking at Absorb Life. That's 30 damage for 1 Grass Energy. Heal 30 from this Pokemon. Yeah, because, 100 HP Pokemon, you're definitely not one-shotting that anytime soon, so it can certainly heal off that. Also, listen, sometimes we need a little bit of, thinking motivation. Sometimes, you need a bit of a distraction. Maybe you're a bit annoyed, you're a bit tilted about how the game's going. Take a look at Deadwood Detention. That's right. You notice that sounds very similar to Red Dead Redemption. You can think about how bad sequels to video games are just by looking at this Pokemon's attack. Not only that, during your opponent's next turn, attacks that the defending Pokemon use cost 2 colorless more. A mild inconvenience for everybody, because who doesn't run double turbo energy in this economy? The defending Pokemon as well, man, that could be really ruining someone's day if only I had some way to switch. Oh, and now it doesn't matter. But you can yell Deadwood Detention at somebody and feel pretty powerful. I'd put that on a shirt. Brambleghast.
That was complete bollocks.
I'm not gonna lie.
Welcome to the segment, Andrew.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I had to just go away for a second. Oh my god.
John, what the fuck? Didn't justify anything.
You're Red Dead Redemption.
Did you not hear how excited I was about that? Would you not like my card that people were excited
It's
about?
got 100 health.
So-
No one's gonna kill it.
Liam's justification in these segments, and his a beautiful justification, is make you excited about the card so you want to play it even though you know it's bad.
That did. That
How do I top this?
made me want to play Red Dead Redemption. I get that.
I
You know,
agree with Andy. I just want to download Red Dead Redemption again.
it also makes me want to go to a school where they give me Deadwood Detention. You know what I mean? But
Okay, alright. PG, please.
Can we have a shirt? Can we have a shirt that just says Deadwood Detention with no context?
No, we are not getting a shirt that says Deadwood Detention on it because, oh my
White
god,
text.
the looks.
to be
Seems
fair,
like
it does feel a bit more sexual than it was intended to
Like
me.
Deadwood
Michael.
Detention just sounds like what you would do when your missus gets annoyed at you. How am I meant to top this? We have Andy who actually took his
Try.
semi-seriously, and then Liam is just, I don't know, a clown.
try.
Still getting over the Red
Try.
Dead Redemption.
Try.
I'm still getting over the Red Dead Redemption comment, to be honest. I'm recovering. I need to recover.
As soon as I saw the text, I was like, Red Dead Redemption.
I saw the
It
text
says-
and went straight towards the sexual, and I ain't gonna lie about it.
I think I do
Keep
have
it
ADHD.
PG.
I think I should get it diagnosed at some point. Anyway,
Anyways, Brambleghast, the card that all you losers have been looking for. So, do you love Iono? Yes, we love that card. Nothing wrong with it. Do you love Fortress? Yes. Do you like putting them down to 2 cards and making them suffer? Yes. Brambleghast, baby. Turn 1, set up the boys. Definitely won't die to any attacks. Turn 2, you double Fortress, baby. You get 2 Bramble. You can get 2 to 3 Brambleghast set up in 1 turn. That's crazy. Iona them, make them suffer, and then you Deadwood, put them in detention. They ain't using that goddamn attack. They have no cause. They got nothing. They are useless. You put them straight to detention. They got no wood. They're dead. Send them straight to. They'll be downloading Red Dead Redemption before this game goddamn ends. And it does 80. It 2 hits a Cramorant. What is there to worry about? The Cramorant attack costs 2 more. It's over. It's ruined. Guardy has to spend 2 more energy. It's over. Suffer. Research is not real. Easiest game of your life. Bramblegast, shops near you, 5p a card. No, but after this, it will be bought out. £20 million per card. Reese has probably got it in bulk. But he's about to make fucking bank. Also, Zorok from last week, baby. You can Zorok this boy back in. How are you piling it up? Fuck knows. You got this.
Reversal energy.
Reversal energy is not real. You got this. You Zork this into the board. You put him straight to detention and look at the opponent and go, you can't attack back. You ain't touching grass. It's over. Surrender.
I don't want to tilt the market, but right now, many Brambleghast are available for less than 10 pence each. Buy.
Buyouts, baby. Buyouts. Reese the bulk.
Are we starting a pump and dump scheme with this card?
You know, I don't know Pokemon has it, but there's a big meme in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where, like, if any content creator mentions a card, it will just get bought out randomly. We're going to do that for Pokemon now.
That story, Michael, of there was rumors about the life points getting increased to 9,000, so Ancient Sanctuary got bought out.
Ancient Leaf got bought out, and it just never happened.
It never happened.
The one thing I got from this is the the mental image I got was just you fortressing to this card, putting them to 2, and then watching them slowly suffer as you hit them for 80 every turn.
I mean, you 2-hit a Crabrant. You make Crabrant attack for 2 more. It's insane.
But Cram it's free. It doesn't work like that.
Shut up, silence. Silence. Do not use logic in this podcast.
Right, so Klefki, right?
So Arceus, 5 energy.
Easy card.
You know what I got from this thing? I want to play Red Dead Redemption now. I won't lie. I actually just want to play Red Dead Redemption.
Weirdly think this card is actually decent against Arceus,
No, it's not.
though.
No, it's not. It's all.
No,
They run Switch cards.
If you can get rid of their double turbo every turn, this card's kind of nuts.
Yeah, just hit
against
Crushing
them.
Hammer's forehead. Wait, no, Crushing Hammer. No.
You can fan of waves.
You need to find some fans. No.
Yeah, whenever your entire deck is that, how are you drawing into them?
Don't worry. That's all of Reese's decks.
The
Don't worry about
tumbleweeds,
it.
they just
Don't
roll
worry.
into the hand.
They roll into the board. The energy, they just roll under it. I don't know
Out of
where it came
interest.
from.
How many Bramble are we running?
6.
How many times you casting?
That's 75.
These questions shouldn't be asked, and
So
yet
at least
here we are.
1.5.
But no, I think it's been. I think we can all mutually agree this has been quite a interesting talk between a few boys, a few lads.
Surely somebody has to win. What's the point of doing it if nobody wins?
Most important thing.
I need you to say this right now. Have you seen half of Reese's decks?
Much
Some
like
of them
Yeah,
still win
but-
anyway, even though they just sit there and go, "All right, cool, go."
You know
much
what?
like the
I'm
Toad
not
Scroll,
wrong.
you can run an illustration rare as well.
Wait,
As
there's
a
an
basic.
illustration rare of this goddamn card.
No, Bramblin. You get Bramblin, and then you immediately cover it up with the bad card. You can do
Don't
that
mind
with
me, I'm
Toad
just
Scroll.
going on Card Market. 1 second.
Buy.
Bye.
Like the old.
It's like
it's like-
the beauty before the pretty before the pain. Like, yeah, here's a nice showcase.
And here's the pain.
Just walking out.
Red Dead Redemption.
I just want to play Red Dead Redemption now. I feel like people just we're making them so much money.
Let's play a western.
What were you gonna say then, Andy? Sorry, I did cut you off.
Let's play a western. Let's go and play. Okay,
Let's play the West.
with our Bramblins and Brambleghast.
But no, I think this has been
And on that bombshell, I think it's time we ended episode 2 of the Same 60 podcast. Thank you so much, Andy, for joining us on the show this week. And
You're very
thank
welcome.
you, as always, to Michael and Liam for being beautiful, beautiful co-hosts on the stream. What? No, on the podcast. Right. And if you guys enjoyed, make sure you like and subscribe and share it to your friends because they too may need to know the power of Bramblegast.
I mean, it's too late. It's like £5 a card now.
Damn. Well,
Wow.
it's the new Champions Festival. But yeah, guys, we will be back soon with another episode. And, I think we've managed, bi-weekly so far. So
Yeah.
let's aim for another bi-weekly episode. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.
See ya.
See ya.